Well, I love this. Like, if we look 3 years in the future, we've got the death of search and AI first. We've got YouTube taking over, and then we've got this self-service process.
You have to start seeing your business and brand as a media company. We see dramatically less people using traditional Google. Hear me, they can see my vibe, they can see my inflections, they can see my gesticulations, they can see all of it. And they can say, that's a dude that I'm feeling. I want to roll with that guy. I just like how he is. Or, you know what? I am positive. I don't want to talk to him because he would annoy the crap out of me if I had to spend more than 5 minutes with him.
Welcome to the Business of Hearing podcast, the #1 marketing and practice growth podcast for high-performing private practice hearing care leaders. My name's Ollie Luke. Pull up a chair, pour yourself a drink, and let's have a chat.
So this is very exciting. I'm here with Marcus Sheridan, author of 2 best-selling books. Of course, They Ask You Answer, all of our favorite and more recently endless customers. And I think what's interesting about this is, Marcus isn't the guy that just developed the playbook that has allowed many small independent businesses to win up to now, but a leading voice in exactly what we need to do to win in an AI search-driven world. So Marcus, thanks so much for joining me.
Yeah, Ollie, I'm happy to be here, man. I love this community. Love what you all have built. And it's the perfect time for this, right? There's a lot of change. And so I'm looking forward to getting into it with you.
Absolutely. And let's start here. Let's start with a big question, right? Let's imagine it's June 2028, like we're 3 years down the line. What does the world of online look like? Like, what does the online world look like from your perspective?
Mm-hmm. So that would be roughly 3 years from now.
Yes.
I'm going to make some bold predictions. As you know, it used to be pretty easy to predict 5 to 10 years in advance. Now it's hard to predict 5 to 10 months in advance because of everything that's going on. I would say within 3 years, we see dramatically less people using traditional Google as their primary means of finding businesses. I think what that means is AI recommendations have now taken over in terms of the great game. It's the new SEO in many ways. And companies all over the world are struggling to adjust because for the better part of 20 years, all they had to do was either do SEO really well or throw enough money at Google and they'd be okay. They'd get leads.
Mm.
And now they're seeing in 2028, I can't just throw money at this problem and it will go away. And that's a struggle for many of them. So we're seeing that in 2028. We're also seeing a huge portion of businesses are suddenly saying, my YouTube page is more important than my website, which is a big shift for many people. And they're saying things like, I never thought that would be the case. We're also seeing in 2028 a total proliferation of self-service, meaning businesses that have made things faster, easier, more friction-free in the buying experience, they continue to dominate. Not by the innovation isn't so much by a new product. It's just by making things faster, easier, more friction-free. And so I think by 2028, pretty much everyone that's listening to this right now will have pricing estimators on their website. It's going to be a standard thing that they have. They're also going to have other interactive tools on their site that allow people to make decisions without being forced to talk to a salesperson.
Mm.
By 2028, I think 90% of your listeners, and just tell me shut up if I'm going too long here.
No,
I think
keep going.
90% of your listeners at least are going to be using AI voice technology, certainly as a bare minimum during off hours when they're getting calls and when they're getting leads. Because by that point, AI voice is much, much better in terms of overall efficacy than just a simple human call that they're getting, and certainly way better than a call center by far. I could go on. Those are just a few of the big ones.
These are good. And let's delve into these a little more. Because the first one was this death of search, right? And we'd be in an AI search world and we'd be relying on getting answers rather than being given listings. And it's interesting time in this discussion because, ChatGPT search came out later last year and as I believe taken way more market share than anybody's given it credit for. When people are still saying it's like 1 to 2 to 3%, I don't know if I'm in an echo chamber of people, but when my mum comes to me and asks me about ChatGPT, like
something's up.
Yeah, absolutely. But now last week, Google introduced their AI mode, rolled it out in the US. And I've heard some of your opinions around Google's challenges, the threat of ChatGPT. Like, what do you think is going to happen between that Goliath? Where do you think Google's going to end up in these next few years?
Well, yeah, I mean, we can look at history for this one. Traditionally, businesses fall by the wayside because they refuse to replace existing business models, revenue streams that they're addicted to. Because of those sponsored ads that you see on Google, that brings in roughly $200 billion a year for the organization. To put that in context of all the ads that they do on YouTube, which of course is owned by Google, less than 50 billion in ads comes from YouTube. So this is the core financial driver of their business. See, on the one side, they're addicted to the money. They've built a business that has to have that money, that revenue. At the same time, they recognize that they can't continue that if they're going to survive. So this is why this is a tremendous challenge. It would be a tremendous challenge for anyone. No doubt, though, Google has been sleeping at the wheel. And for the first time in probably 20 years, they're having midnight boardroom meetings after ChatGPT came out in November of 2022. I mean, there's no question about that. Now, they might argue, well, we were trying to be safe. Safe as in protecting $200 billion in search revenue. They just didn't want to make this move until they were forced to make this move. We've seen this over and over again with the history of businesses in the world. Now, if you really are honest with yourself, and you have to be, and this is what I've learned, is the great business leaders of today, and certainly great marketers, are the ones that are most self-aware. It's like they look in the mirror and they see it for what it is. They don't have to look down at the scale to know they've gained weight. You know what I'm saying? It's like they just know because they're very, very self-aware. You need to be self-aware with how you're evolving as a buyer. You said your mom is now using ChatGPT. That says a lot because your mom is how old?
60-ish.
60-ish, right? She's 60 years old. Right?
Agreed.
She's not some native techie by any stretch of the imagination. Yet she's realizing, so you're telling me that I can skip these sponsored ads and I can just get the answer directly? Yes. I'll take it. And everything that ChatGPT is doing right now is designed towards giving a better, faster user experience. And this is why they're winning. Now, did Google say, okay, we've got this new AI search experience? Yes. The same day they announced it, their stock dropped by 7%. Why? Because there's this dilemma of, okay, well, now we've got to cannibalize our own business. Yes, you do. If you want to survive, you've got to cannibalize. If you want to survive, you've got to take the hits. Now, they recovered a few days later because some mega announcements, especially with Gemini, now 3.5 is really, really good, and they're just doing a lot of cool things there. But the problem is they gave that momentum to ChatGPT. Now, I don't think the future of Google is as, by any stretch, a traditional search business. I do think search will be it, but it's going to be through AI and it won't be through sponsored ads. So I don't think you'll be doing Google ads as we know it at all in 5 years. I just don't think they're going to be part of the interface. It just doesn't make any sense to me. And it's no different than like if at one point in time, if you remember, if you're listening to this, you used to have search results on both sides of the page. And the sponsors were on the right, and then you had the organic on the left. And then Google realized, well, not enough people are clicking on the right side. So they kept the right side, but they put the primary, the most highly paid businesses, the ones that were bidding the most, they put them on the upper left. And they say, oh, this is working better. And then they said, it's still not doing a lot. Let's just put them all over there on the left and let's eliminate the right side. Right. And now today, they are trying to make it almost impossible for you to realize they're sponsored ads, even though by law they have to state it. And so they state it, but let's be honest, nefariously, they're trying to show it as it's an actual like search result. And I don't suspect they will change that soon, but they over the next couple of years are going to be forced to completely just eliminate it and say goodbye to that 200 billion. So then they have to replace that revenue. And I don't know if fully they're able to recover from that. I'd like to think that they are because, this is, they're a smart company. But this much I would say, you cannot build your house on Google. That is a house of sand. What you have to do today is you have to create more trust signals than anyone else in your market. And what's a trust signal? A trust signal is something that tells AI or search engines or humans, hey, this is a company that I want to work with. But for the sake of this conversation, we should probably lean into the AI recommendation side of it, because whether AI recommends your business or not is going to be the biggest factor as to whether or not you have a thriving business in the future. So how do you get recommended by AI? What are those trust signals? Well, for example, one of the most, and you can do this, by the way, you could go right now and you could do a search, and you could say, and forgive me for using the wrong language, Ali, but who are the most, who are the best hearing, what do you call them? Hearing doctor? What's the word for it? What's
the beautiful thing is the language you use is what most people would use.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right. This is the thing. And that's actually very smart. That's the way people would search it, right? But what are the best, hearing doctors near me? All right. For example, and a lot of people would laugh at that because I use the technical phrase, but I actually use the right phrase from a search perspective because that's what I'm searching. To your point, this is very, very well said. Now, when that happens, what you can do is you could go to AI right now. You could do that search. And then you can ask AI, how did you come up with your answers? And this is actually a very healthy thing that most people don't do. Say, so exactly, explain to me in detail the criteria that made you choose those companies. And then if your company wasn't chosen, just say, why did you not choose? Name your company, name your URL. It's a really extraordinary thing. And so some of the factors that you're going to find, reviews are a big one, man. And we've known reviews are big. And you've been preaching this, like you guys have been preaching this really hardcore, but reviews, they are one of the biggest trust signals that we have today. Content is a trust signal, long and short form, trust signal. Your social media profiles is a trust signal. Updating your content with schema markup, which is something that's nerdy and technical, that's a trust signal. Trying to have, like recent information, that's a trust signal. Answering reviews online, that's a trust signal. See, all these things are trust signals. So your job is to outtrust everyone else. And that's by creating more of those trust signals.
Which should have always been the foundation, right?
Yes.
That's it. It's like the best business now is going to win rather than the business who can manipulate the system the most.
Well, you make a very good point. It's going to be much harder to manipulate the system. It's going to be much, I actually think for the first time, truly, we're going to have a meritocracy in search results. That's exciting to me.
Agreed.
I think AI is going to get so good and they're going to be able to analyze so well that we will have a meritocracy. For years, one of the biggest names of the game has been inbound links to your website. That's and that has been a quote trust signal for Google and search engines over the years. But I've always thought, is that really a great authority marker? I mean, to a degree, yes, but also it can be manipulated. And if something can be manipulated, I don't see it as a very strong trust signal or authority marker. And so I think we're going to get to see the problem that this created too was if you captured the hill first as a business from a search and SEO perspective, it was really hard for people to take over. And so if you were new to the market and you're trying to do SEO, man, you hadn't been there for long. You didn't have a ton of content underneath your belt. You hadn't trained Google to come to your site often. It's like, and so it wasn't advantageous for these newer companies. That's why, like, you take a pool company like my River Pools, and for people to just try to like suddenly come in and be competitive, digitally speaking, very hard because we've been in the game so much longer. I think this is the great equalizer now with AI, because AI is going to say, that piece of content right there, that's the best I've seen. I'm going to source that. I'm going to show that. I'm going to reference that. That's the one that I'm going to show. So I think that's that's a big one. Another thing that's actually working really well though, Ollie, that I talked about in the original They Ask You Answer, still crushes, is best of list though. So if you look in They Ask You Answer, and now Endless Customers, I talk about the big five, and these are the 5 subjects that buyers are obsessed with, that businesses still, for whatever dumb reason, don't want to talk about, which kills trust and trust signals. And those 5 subjects are cost questions, problem or fear-based questions, comparison-based questions, review-based questions, and best of questions. So people are constantly searching best. So again, it might be who are the top hearing doctors in the Denver area, right? So that's a common that could be a common search. Now, what I taught in They Ask You Answer was I would get those questions and I openly addressed them online. I was the first pool company in the world, and I was really probably the first person that really said, listen, you need to create best of content, articles, videos, etc., that includes your competitors and that you show them. And this way, you can own a lot of their search results. When people are searching for them, you can own those best of searches or those top searches or those most searches, whatever those are within that best of umbrella and category. Now, the one thing, though, that I said in They Ask You Answer that I've changed my tune on, Ollie, is I said, when I wrote the article, who are the best pool builders in Richmond, Virginia back in the day, and that thing just crushed, the 5 companies I put on the list, one of them wasn't mine. And it was because it felt self-serving, and I didn't feel like it was going to increase trust. But what I found was that that now what's happening is AI is taking those best of lists and they're using that as the source for the recommendations that they're giving. So I've changed the tune. I said, now I want you to go back and I want you to change those, and I want you to include yourself, but here's the big fat but. All right, it's got to be a big fat but, right? And that is, you want to do this in such a way that still doesn't come across as self-serving and as honest and unbiased. And the way that you do that is you show your criteria for the best. So I've done this with a bunch of companies. So you might say, all right, so we've come up with a 10-point criteria system for defining who are the best hearing doctors in Denver, Colorado. The 10-point system includes, number 1, how long they've been in business. Number 2, how many Google reviews they've gotten. You see what I'm saying? Number 3, how many services they offer, whatever it is, right? And then so you can show this criteria, and then now people are able to say, oh, okay, I can see how they fit this criteria.
Nice.
And so I have a ton of clients, a boatload, that are being recommended for these best of searches within AI, because AI is sourcing, using that content to show their list. You with me so far?
Yeah.
Now, here's the thing though. I don't know how long this will last. I don't know how long it's going to be effective. I know it's working today very, very well. I know the companies that have done They Ask You Answer well and obsessed over their customers' questions, worries, issues, concerns, and addressed them well online are doing better than all the other companies for the most part when it comes to AI recommendations. But yeah, I mean, that is one of the big shifts. And I put that in Endless Customers, the new book, and it has rendered really, really effective results.
Beautiful. Beautiful. It's an interesting time, and even coming back to trust, like I don't know, even looking at VO3 that's come out, like we're on the cusp of not trusting anything we see anymore, no matter where we see it. It used to be if you've seen it with your own eyes, then you can trust it. Like nothing.
Do you know there's a name for that? Do you know the name for that? There's a scientific name for that.
No, but I'm intrigued.
It's called the reality paradox. So the reality paradox is when anything that you could see, not with your own eyes, but like online, anything that you could see digitally could be created, then you start to doubt everything that you see, which is actually very sad. And I'm sure you've probably seen this. I've seen this myself in a few different ways. There's two main reasons we're seeing an explosion of the reality paradox. The first happened before AI, which was the influencer algorithms. And number two, we've got AI. So, for example, we've all seen videos where it's some scene on some plane and somebody gets in a fight, an argument. But then when you start to look at it, you're like, wait a second. There's nobody else sitting on the plane. It's not really a plane, is it? Oh, these are some stupid influencers that are coming up with some cheesy skit. And so that's an example of the reality paradox. The other is now when you look at this extraordinary synthetic video technology that Google is putting out there, and this is why their stock went back up, by the way, right? You're saying, oh my literal goodness.
Absolutely.
And with that, to your point, you're not necessarily going to know, which means more challenge. In person starts to swing back, fascinatingly enough, right? In person will swing back. Interactive, though, tools, it's just a really, really big one. And that's one that you're going to want to really lean into hard.
And let's talk about YouTube, because you mentioned YouTube as a second point. And I think your quote was, your YouTube channel will be more important than your website by 2028, or I may have paraphrased it slightly there.
That's pretty accurate.
Yeah,
there's an argument that you can make for that. No question. There's an argument that you can make for that.
Well, let's make it, because I'm intrigued by that, and I'll speak on behalf of our industry. I can think of less than 5 people that do a good job on YouTube, and probably less than 20 that actually post on YouTube. And given that, I think if you can build relationship prior to the reliance on Google that you traditionally had, then that's going to have a big added value in the future. But what role do you think YouTube plays going forward? Where do you think the focus should be? Why do you think it's so important?
One of the core pillars of a known and trusted brand that we talk about in Endless Customers is you got to be willing to show what others aren't willing to show. Sounds simple. Most don't do it, to your point. Very, very few within your space do it well.
Absolutely.
And so when you realize this, you say, all right, over 82% of all the time people spend online this year is going to be video-based. Video-based. Over 82%. Now, you think that number's going down or up? So what this means is, wow, we've got to start thinking, and this makes people like nervous, but I'm okay making them nervous because it's not my job to make them comfortable. It's my job to make them see reality for what it is. You have to start seeing your business and brand as a media company. A media company. If you're a media company, you think differently. You start doing things like this. You say, instead of hiring another salesperson, I'm going to hire a full-time videographer. We're going to create video every single day. When you think like a media company, you stop taking the things that you do for granted, like the stuff that you make or your processes, your services. You start showing them because everything is fascinating. Everything is interesting, right? So that is this idea of we're becoming a media company. You know, I've got multiple companies today that I own, and the majority have a full-time videographer because I realize just how big of a deal this is. What's interesting is AI thus far hasn't really affected YouTube. It's affected your success on Google a lot already, and it's going to affect it a lot more. But where it's affecting YouTube is there's synthetic and then there's real content. And I think YouTube will probably get better at like being able to like identify synthetic content. That being said, there's still tons of opportunity when it comes to search on YouTube. It's way easier to rank and show up in YouTube search results than it is most of the time in Google search results. And plus, you can be, ranked number 1 on Google today search results, but because of AI answers and because of stupid Reddit and because of additional questions and because of this and that, sponsored ads, you get less than 20% of the clicks. So it's not a big deal anymore to be number 1 on Google like it was at one time when you got 80% of all the clicks. And so search is still a big opportunity there. But the one adage that's never changed is people buy from those they know, like, and trust. And when you talk about a trust signal, when you put yourself online and you show the things that you do and how you do it, and you might say to yourself, well, I'm not necessarily showing anything new. Yeah, they don't care about that. What they care about is, do I vibe with this person? Do I feel comfortable with them? I mean, are they communicating in a way that it's not intimidating? Do they seem like a jerk or not? Like, all these things are factors that are dictating, do they reach out to you or not? The amount of people that have watched my videos before they ever reach out to me is extraordinary. I mean, it's just it's a standard thing. People should have seen your face and heard your voice before you meet them for the first time. And if they haven't seen your face and heard your voice and learned from you before you shake hands with them the first time, before you have that first sales call with them, whatever that is for you, well, then you failed them, in my opinion. You failed them. And so there should be no surprises in business anymore because people hate surprises. Now, you might be saying video's not my thing. Stop lying to yourself. Stop lying to yourself. Because if I said to you, are you good with people? You'd probably say, well, yes. Yeah. Are you good with customers? Yeah, I'm good with customers. Okay. You can't be good with customers and then say you're not good on video. That's BS. You're lying to yourself. You just haven't developed or the skill yet or made the transition yet. Because ultimately, just like you, Ollie, and just like me, like right now, sure, I'm talking to you, but I'm talking to your listeners. Like, I'm obsessed with your listeners right now. I'm thinking about them and how they would perceive what I'm saying, and if it's going to be clear to them, it's going to be understandable. Like, I'm literally obsessed with them. I'm not obsessed with the fact that I'm going to stumble over a couple words. I'm going to say a few things wrong. I'm not going to do it just right. I'm not going to be everybody's cup of tea. I don't really care. There's a certain percentage of your listeners already listening to this, Ollie, that have said, you know what? I don't really like this guy. And I'm totally fine with that. It doesn't mean anything to me. I've let them go. There's also a percentage of your listeners that are like, I love Marcus. Man, I love it when Ollie and Phil just like use Marcus for like when they bring him in because he always has some value. I love his energy. And I vibe with those people. I don't vibe with the rest. It's all good. All of it's good to me. I just don't care about judgment. I think one of the most underrated skills in the world today is the ability to be okay with being judged. But here's what's interesting. If they come to your website and you ain't got no videos and they're really wanting to watch some, are you being judged? Yes. If they come to your website and they don't have the feels, if they don't feel right about you, are you being judged? Yes. You see, they're going to judge you no matter what. So I would rather allow the judgment to happen at its highest state. Its highest state is that they can hear me, they can see my vibe, they can see my inflections, they can see my gesticulations, they can see all of it. And they can say, that's a dude that I'm feeling. I'm going to roll with that guy. I just like how he is. Or, you know what? I am positive. I don't want to talk to him because he would annoy the crap out of me if I had to spend more than 5 minutes with him. Either way, that's a win for both of us.
I love it. And the interesting thing about YouTube, and once again, the puzzles that I see that stop people creating content video-wise is the fear of, for some reason, if I look into this bit of glass in front of me, then I freeze up. And I think you've beautifully articulated that you're not even thinking about the bit of glass that's recording you. You're thinking about this conversation and the people you're reaching, and that would be the same for them. But the second one is what do I record? What do I talk about? Does this now fall to traditional? They ask you answer principles of
Yes, it does.
questions, or is there any
A-
unique strategy that you think is applicable to YouTube?
Well, there's definitely that. In endless customers, I do talk about certainly some more disruption techniques that you can use. Really, really simple ones that you can do. Let me give you an example. What are the things that are happening in your industry by some of your competitors that really just annoy the crap out of you, that really bother you, that you're like, I wish it wasn't like that. I wish they didn't do business like that. All right, anything like that is something that you should be talking about and you should lean hard into. Another example of this is that, what are some things that should be standard in your industry? Should be the minimum bar of excellence, but are not standard. So let me give you an example of this, Ollie. When I got into the business of in-ground pools, fiberglass pools, the way they were installed 25 years ago when we started was you dug a hole in the ground, you put a bed of sand at the bottom of that hole, you placed the pool shell on top of that sand, you backfilled around that pool shell with sand, you filled it with water, you poured concrete around the whole thing, you called it an in-ground fiberglass swimming pool. Well, any dummy knows that you shouldn't build on sand. Yet, pools were built on sand, fiberglass pools were. So they settled, so they shifted, so they had problems. So we openly talked about, hey, this is dumb. It shouldn't be like this. How should it be done? Crushed stone goes down compacted. You backfill with crushed stone. That's compacted. You're pouring concrete now over stone, not sand. So you don't wash. You don't have these shifts. And when we started, roughly 80% of all pools were built on sand, 20% stone. Today, 80% of all fiberglass pools are built on stone. Why? Because we said this is the standard that the industry should have. And we changed the entire industry. So that exists in every single industry. The problem is a lot of folks don't speak up and they don't say, hey, these should be the standards. If you want to become the most known and trusted brand in your market, and that's the payoff for endless customers, it's this guidebook for helping you to become that most known and trusted brand. You got to be willing to say, you got to be willing to show, you got to be willing to sell in a way that others aren't willing to do. And what we just described there, that disruption, that's a big part of it. Can we talk about one more thing that's a big part of it too?
Yes,
that we
please.
got to hit.
Yeah, go for it.
So I just mentioned sell in a way that others aren't willing to sell. 75% of all buyers today say they would prefer to have a seller-free sales experience. And this doesn't mean we hate salespeople. It just means we don't want to talk to a salesperson until we're good and ready. And so the key to this, and I talk about this aggressively in Endless Customers, and that is self-service is your future. Self-service are interactive tools, especially on your website, that allow someone to get answers or to take actions that previously they would have had to have done by speaking with a human first. And so I give 5 different examples, but let me just give you just one that is an obvious one, which is a pricing estimator. The pricing estimators are, everybody that's listening to this should have a pricing estimator on their website. Why? A pricing estimator is just that. It's not a quote tool. It's an estimator. There's a difference between the tool. Because the way that a buyer works, when they get on a buyer's journey, and let's say somebody says, I need a new hearing aid. First thought, when they realize, I think I need to get a hearing aid. Do you know the first question, Ollie?
How much?
Roughly, how much is this going to cost? Now, if they can't get that addressed, it's very hard for them to move forward. It's very hard for them to reach out to companies. It's very hard for them to buy. And so that's the first question they have in a buyer's journey. If you address that question adequately, now they can do the rest of the research, then they can reach out to the company, and then they can get the actual quote, and then they can buy. And so a pricing estimator is so powerful, and we've tested this on companies now all over the world. Generally speaking, when someone adds a pricing estimator to their website and puts it on the homepage, and here's the phrase that you want to use, Ollie, get instant estimate. Get instant estimate. When you do that, generally we see a 300 to 500% increase in leads, 3 to 5x, which is a pretty extraordinary number. So suddenly you've gone from, what you were doing, which is, let's say you're getting 3 leads a week. Now you're getting 9 to 15. And I see it over and over again. And the reason why I see it so much is because I believe in this so much, and I saw where the industry was headed. I started a software company last year called PriceGuide.ai. PriceGuide.ai allows you to quickly, easily, and effectively create a pricing estimator on your website for less than $20 a month on average. And if you think about that, like what's the value of a lead? What are you spending on a lead right now? And now you're getting 3 to 5x. So Price Guide is extraordinary because it's an out-the-box tool and it uses AI, and you can have a working pricing estimator in less than 30 minutes up on your website, which is incredible. I think 90% of service-based businesses are going to have a pricing estimator on their website in the future. Now, if I was in the business of hearing, and again, I know I'm not using the right words, but
You kind of are. Yeah.
I would have one type of self-service tool I would have on my website is what's called a self-selection tool, which is what is the right type of hearing aid for me? All right. So that's the first fundamental question somebody would have. And it's an interactive experience that by the end of it, they get a recommendation for particular models. That is bare bones. That's every single person listening to this should have that tool right now. And you can build it out with a little bit of logic. It's not that hard to do.
Yep.
Right. In my agency Impact, we've built these and it's a no-brainer. Second thing that you absolutely should have is a pricing estimator. Your pricing estimator should give someone a range. So if it's like with my pool company, if you went to riverpoolsandspas.com, people, you'd say, well, that's a manufacturer's website. They have dealers that install. How can they give a price? Well, we can't give an exact price. We can give a price range just like you can. And so the price range that you might see on our site is you might go through the estimator tool and you see, okay, based on what you just said, the pool that you want, the model that you want, the options that you want, looks like you're going to be somewhere between $100,000 and $150,000. Right? So that's a big range. Yes, but that's way more than anybody else has given you. And that's enough for you to say, I'm in the game or not. Right? Mm-hmm. Which is, again, what everybody wants. And so you need to provide this with your customers. Those are the two most important tools that you need on your website right now for self-service. One that recommends what type of product they need. Two, that gives a general price estimate for how much they're going to spend. Obviously, Price Guide is one of the keys for that, but there's is one tool that you can use. There's other tools for this tool. Outgrow.co is a tool that I've seen that you can make these like quizzes pretty easily out the box. Outgrow.co is one, and you're seeing more and more, and you can even build them with AI at this point. But the good thing about something that's a little bit more baked out, you've got it built in with the connector to your CRM and all that stuff.
Beautiful. I love what you've built there, and it's interesting. Like Daniel Priestley wrote a book on it, and then built
Score App.
Complement it, just phenomenal.
And Score App, by the way, is one of the 5 types of tools. I call it self-assessment when you give somebody a readiness score. So, like once again, let's add a third. They should have Score App on their site, which is a tool that says, "Do I need a hearing aid?" Then, if the answer is yes, then or like it gives them a score, or like how much a grade, if you will, on how much they potentially need one. And then the second one is the recommendation.
Absolutely.
Third one is the price estimate tool.
Yep. Beautiful. And the ease in order to build these tools is has never been greater, right? Especially when you're creating products at $20 a month and like
come on.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, man, I love this. Like if we look 3 years in the future, we've got the death of search and AI first. We've got YouTube taking over, and then we've got this self-service process, which I think is difficult for the industry that we're in to wrap their heads around, because it's very much been a traditional model where you need to look somebody in the eye to make a decision. But even we're seeing a big boomer trend right now from that silent generation who weren't particularly technical moving away, and a generation with far more preference that want to do their due diligence and research to make smart, capable and good decisions ahead of meeting people. So it all ties together so beautifully for the moment in time we are right now. But I appreciate your time greatly on this. I think you've given us so much wisdom, and I think our job from this is to make you proud of our industry for the work we're going to do in order to represent what's gone into this book, to ensure we're very much leading the future and are set to dominate and help more people to achieve better hearing. So thank you so much for your time.
Ollie, you're welcome. Your clients are very, very lucky to have you. I mean that. You do a service to them, keeping them in front of the game. Everybody needs a coach in their life, and you all are doing that so well for your clients. So a hat tip to you. Thanks for this opportunity.
Thanks, man. Appreciate your time.
And there we have it. Another episode has come to an end, and I have a quick favor to ask. If you have found this helpful, then who do you know who should listen to this podcast? I strongly believe a rising tide lifts all boats, and right now, private practice needs to stick together to fight these big, gormless groups and these manufacturer-owned Goliaths that are looking to take market share from us. Consider who should be listening. Pass on the word about the Business of Hearing podcast, and I'll see you again next week.